I dropped out of community college at 19 years old after only taking one semester. And in the past 12 months, I've landed three separate tech sales jobs at 19 years old. So I'm currently 20 in my third location. And I'm going to be teaching you how to do exactly what I did so you can be able to land a job and make a good amount of commission while there being a struggling job market right now. So after I made the decision saying, hey, school really isn't for me, it's just a professor reciting the same slides that he's been using for the past 10 years. Um, and, people not really around me, like focusing on what really mattered to them. I decided to break away from that, toxic environment that really doesn't like help you grow. And I decided to, pursue my own personal growth on my own amends. So I decided to, leave school and go teach myself about business, about sales, about marketing, about doing all these things online. And my first job was working in freight at Home Depot overnight from like 7 to 1 or 2 sometimes in the morning. And so from 7 p.m. to 1 to 2. And after a couple of months, I was like, all right, let's start getting into sales. And my reasoning for doing that was, all right, if I want to start a business one day, I'm going to have to learn the ins and outs of other people and what they're doing. Of course, when I have the income to outsource all of that to professionals in their respective field, I would do that. But right now, when I'm young and all I have is a part-time job in freight at Home Depot and a ton of time to just basically spend on upskilling myself as a person, let's learn some sales. So I got my first official job, full-time job doing door-to-door sales. And I sold for a roofing company, and then shortly after for a window company for one of the largest window manufacturers in the United States. And I learned a ton from that. But what really was the major pivot that really impacted me the most was when I knocked in an account executive's house in upstate New York who told me to look into tech sales. Um, and I was working for the window job there, and I couldn't sell him on the windows, but what he did tell me was, hey, you should look into Texos. And I'm like, dude, you got the worst timing ever. Like, I just dropped out of community college. It's probably, I was like, just by the way, like, before you get into like a whole spiel about how great your career is, this is not something I'm going to follow. I want to start my own business. Um, and he kind of sold me on being like, you don't need a degree. And I was like, I was a little bit intrigued about the whole thing. So I went home, did my whole due diligence, and I discovered a lot about the field of tech sales. I was watching dozens of videos, back to back, learning a bunch of things about the field. But the one thing that I noticed is that there was not a clear roadmap for tech sales. It was just a bunch of watered down information that really didn't make sense. And then if you'd follow different people on YouTube, then there'd be different roadmaps. So you'd be a little bit lost. So I decided, hey, let's pay for a mentorship. And I did. And in 2 weeks, I landed a tech sales job where I was the one actually, breaking in and like pitching for a cybersecurity company at 19 years old with no degree and no formal tech sales experience. And that was a major pivoting moment for myself because there was a bunch of doubt whether this would work. I'm 19, again, no degree, no formal tech sales experience. It's me against a bunch of people who have been in the role for years, who have a college degree, who are much more set in stone to be reliable. But I really crushed it in the interview process, and I really portrayed myself to be a top tier candidate. And that's something that we're going to be talking about today. But yeah, I mean, we're going to be going into the actual skills of like, how I did this and follow more of a system so you're not lost as well if you're looking at dozens of videos just as I was trying to break into tech sales. All right, so this will be more so of the system. So what's the system? So my, very simple, just jotted this down in like 5 seconds. What would be a system to follow? You want to be able to have an ideal persona for being in tech sales. So you want to be gritty. You want to be able to explain your reasoning and be able to communicate yourself very strategically when you're speaking even to prospects on the phone or to your hiring manager that you're interviewing with or to the sales manager that you'll be reporting to. So you need to be able to convey and speak in a way that, people pay attention to. You're not someone being like, yeah, and uh what was I saying? Like you can't be like that if you're going to be on the phones. I mean, you can, but your results probably wouldn't be where you'd expect them to be. So you need to have an ideal persona for sales, and that's going to be very very gritty because you're going to face a lot of rejections, a bunch of things, falling out of place, and you just have to be able to withstand that and say, okay, whatever, next one, let's continue. That was my mentality for doing door to door sales. I messed up a door, or I've gotten the cops called on me been chased down by dogs. I'm like, all right, let's move on. Another door, another neighborhood. There's another door right there. That could be an opportunity. You never know that. Um, so always have that gritty mindset. Always be very coachable. So you need to be, put your ego aside for a little bit and be like, okay, these people that I'm looking up to, um, they probably know a little bit more than I do. Not a little bit, a lot. You need to have that mindset. You just have to be a sponge and soak everything they're telling you, and don't try to recreate the wheel. Right? All we're doing is just emulating the process. And um, I'm going to be making a video about your LinkedIn presence to tell you guys exactly what to do and like a structure to follow. And then networking internally. When you are trying to reach out to break into a job, you're gonna want to. This is what's going to differentiate you compared to every other candidate out there trying to get the job that you want to get. What you want to do is essentially you want to start cold emailing and cold calling people. And that's all you're doing when you're in tech sales. We're just calling and emailing people and seeing if they want to sit down on a 30-minute, 1 hour meeting. It's really not that hard for the amount of pay and commissions that you get from booking meetings that sometimes turn into $10,000, $50,000, $100,000. I sourced $100,000 worth of pipeline in my first 3 days of October because of the meetings that I had set out in September that took place on those first couple of days of October. So again, it's just a bunch of strategizing, but in the end, if you boil it down to what it is, you're just calling and emailing people if they want to, jump on a call. And last thing, execute relentlessly. This is something that I think I took into mind when I was just considering in my position. If I was working from 8 in the morning to 6 p.m., doing door to door, and then having to work at Home Depot from 7 p.m. to 2 in the morning and having like 3 hours of sleep for a good amount of months until I broke into tech sales, I was like, I'm gonna find a way out. I'm not gonna be, staying this way. I dropped out of school. I need to make sure that I learn sales. And I'm going to, if this is a thing that I can break into, even if there's a slight bit of chance, I'm going to make sure I break into it. And I did. I grabbed reality by the throat and I said, give me what I want. And I geared myself to be that type of person. And that's something you're going to have to do. You can't be, going after something and giving it a half-ass effort. You need to be all in on this, or if not, there's no point in trying. And just one more final thing, if you're finding these videos entertaining or even valuable to actually help you break into tech sales, just give me a sub, and follow me on LinkedIn as well, Christian Sanchez Aguilera, and just comment SDR if you want more in-depth videos of how to break into tech sales. Now that I've been in tech sales for about a year now, I really want to expand my, capacity of what I am able to handle. So while I have my, day-to-day job doing tech sales at DataSnipper, I also am building my AI startup, and I am going to be building a mentorship to help people one-on-one, actually help them break in, get as many testimonials as I can, help more people. And where is this going, right? Essentially, stage one is just to help you break into tech sales. Once you have a good base with an OTE of like 90K, 80K, a good job, you're solidified in your tech sales space. You can, become an account executive and make more than 6 figures with your base salary and make, 150, 140K OTE after you're in tech sales for a year or two. That'll be great. But what I want to do is build my own business. And right now that we're so-called in the AI bubble, this is something people can take advantage of while having the income of being in tech sales. So again, I'm more than happy to, keep expanding on this. But for now, just sub and follow if you enjoyed the video, and comment SDR if you want more in-depth videos of how to break into tech sales. And yeah, till the next one.